Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gloria and thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today I wanted to go through some of my plants that I'm currently propagating or some of the already successful plants that I've propagated. So yeah, before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And yeah, let's get started with today's video. So first off, I'll show you guys the plants that I've already propagated and they're doing great right now. So first is my Hoya Crimson Queen. So Queen has its variegation on the outside, so the margins are kind of white. But yeah, this one is my Carnosa and it's the variegated version. This leaf in particular is my favorite because it looks kind of funky and it has a bit more white. So I originally started this with 4 node cuttings. So I chopped each of the nodes into individual pieces and I stuck it into some soil, and that's pretty much all I did for propagating this one. And it now has a complete root system. I'm really enjoying this. I'm going to be giving this to a friend once the whole quarantine kind of lightens up. We're currently in phase 2 right now in the Toronto area, and yeah, can't wait to give this to her. But yeah, this one is doing really well. I like to propagate my plants more with single node cuttings as opposed to having a really long piece of cutting with multiple nodes, just because I find it's a lot easier to root when it's just one node and the plant has to get so much energy from non-existent roots. I just find it's personally easier. This one is my Philodendron Pink Princess. So I propagated this initially in water, and after I saw some root growth on the nodes, I planted it into soil and it's adjusted pretty well. This is the newest leaf that came out. I wouldn't say it's a beautiful leaf, but it's a leaf nonetheless. And yeah, I see new growth coming in. Hopefully more pink will come, but there's only one leaf right now that has a bit of the pink splash, which is this one. All the other leaves are pretty much just kind of greenish slash discolored. But that's okay. That one is also a successful propagation. Next up, I wanted to show you guys my other Hoya Carnosa. So this one is also the queen, but I'm currently propagating this one in moss, which I'm trying out, and it's a little bit fuller. I just cut off a really long vine off my mother plant, and I figured I can make another one for a different friend because I love sharing my Hoya Carnosas. They're really great beginner-friendly plants, and especially for people who are intimidated by plants. I think this one's a really good one to start with. Once the roots kind of grow in more, I will transplant this into soil before I give it off, just because I don't think a lot of people know how to handle moss when they're beginners. This one is my Hoya Oblavada, which I cut off because it has just the cutest, roundest leaves, and it's just so healthy and very compact. So I chopped it because it was getting a little too tall for my mini greenhouse that I keep a lot of my Hoyas in, and this one's also in moss. So there's a lot of roots I already see, so I think the aerial roots have really adjusted well to the moss and they're turning into very strong roots. So I'll probably be soon transplanting this into soil because I love my soil Hoyas. I don't like to keep Hoyas in moss for too long, just more so in the beginning stages when the roots are developing, and then after that they go straight into soil and they do perfectly fine. Next up, I have my Syndax Aspectus Silvery N. Some of the vines were getting too long and they were a little bit smaller in size, the leaves, so I decided to just chop them and make some more plants so I can share it with friends and family. So I think I'll probably give one to a friend and then one I'll give to my mom, just because they are really cute, and I have mine currently hanging in a north-facing window and it's doing fine, so it's very low light tolerant. But obviously it will thrive better in brighter indirect light. Oh, there's a little fungus gnat. I hate fungus gnats. Okay, next up I have my Philodendron Rio. So this one is the silver stripe and it's a little bit more muted compared to the Brazil. I originally got this as a really long piece with multiple nodes and it was rooted. So I decided to chop that up into 3 pieces, 3 or 4. And then I stuck it into some soil and I could already see so many different growth points that are coming out. So as you can see here, that's a growth point. There's also a little nub over here. and there's a few more on the inside that's a little harder to show. But usually when I can tell that a plant has successfully been propagated, so the roots have become strong and very well established inside the pot, is when you can see growth points peeking out of the nodes, because that's where leaves come out, and you will really want to look for activated nodes. So yeah, there is a downside to soil propagation just because you don't get to kind of see the root growth as much, but I like it more just because there's less transplant shock when you're changing from one medium to another. I find the most difficult part is with water propagations and getting them used to being in soil, because they're so used to being in such a wet environment. You have to make sure that the soil is a little bit more damp in the beginning, and then you can go back to your regular watering schedule. So next up, I have my Hoya maniparensis. So you guys probably saw this in my last Crystal Star nursery haul, but it was just one single piece. It was a one cutting plant that I originally bought, and now I cut it into 3 pieces so it could grow into a nice full plant. And there's already some new growth coming out the top, so I think this one is doing good. I didn't want to propagate the cuttings in moss because it's already in a fairly big pot. I think it would adjust better if it was just in soil, so that's why I have this one in soil. And I really like this plant. It has like kind of a bit flimsier leaves, but I still really like it. Next up is my Hoya Matilde. So you guys saw my big Hoya Matilde mother plants, so I'm currently propagating these 2. I've already propagated, I think, 3 times already with my Hoya Matilde, so it's just constantly growing, and it's outgrown its trellis, so I just keep chopping it and selling these little cuttings to, you know, local plant people, and it makes them really happy, and it makes me happy being able to share a piece of my plant. And yeah, I usually like to root them before I sell them, because I find a lot of people get Hoya Matildes as one of their kind of in the beginning of their Hoya journey, so I'm worried they're not too experienced with it and they kill the unrooted cuttings, so I like to give rooted cuttings. But yeah, this one is my Hoya Matilde. Next up is my Hoya Angleriana. So I got this from my friend. It's such a cute little piece. This one's actually already semi-rooted, so there were some small roots on this already, but I just want to make sure it adjusts well in soil. So I just continued it in moss because I think that's how she rooted hers. And once it gets a bit more established, I will be transferring this into soil as well. I like all my Hoyas to be in soil. I don't like Hoyas to be permanently in moss because I find they don't have nutrients and they just don't grow as well, but they're good for initially trying to develop roots. So that one is my Angleriana. Another Hoya that I got from a plant friend is this Hoya Australis Lisa, and I originally got this as a one single piece with 3 nodes on it. So I noticed that it was kind of long enough for me to separate it into 2, so that's why I chopped it, and now there is double the chance of roots growing and double the chance of growth points happening. So very excited. It's doing well so far. I don't see any pieces that are dying. The leaves feel very firm, so I think it's still doing great. I haven't checked on the roots yet just because it's been only, I think, a week. It's only been a week, yeah. So it hasn't been long at all. And I usually check after maybe a couple weeks just to see if anything's happened. But for now, it's doing great. I think this one will be my last, actually second last one. So this one is my Hoya rotundiflora that I'm currently propagating as well. So it's a pretty kind of full 2.5 inch pot, and it also has some growth points here, so there's some baby leaves coming, and same with that leaf. That one's a new leaf. And yeah, I think this one is doing pretty well, almost ready to be sold, but I think I'm gonna wait maybe a couple more weeks so that the roots are a bit stronger and more established before I send this out to the world. And last but not least is my only water propagation plant, and this one is my string of hearts. So it's pretty long, as you can see. I cut this off my mother plant because it was getting too tangled, because my cat was playing with it too much. She likes to kind of just like hit the strands like that, and then it gets all tangled, and I don't like really tangled string of hearts look. I like it more just cascading down. So I was a little bit upset, but you know, it's growing roots. Let me see if I can show you guys. a little hard to see since it's a glass container. This is actually a kombucha bottle that I washed and has now turned into the perfect bottle for propagating plants. So yeah, this one is my string of hearts and it's doing okay so far. Some of the leaves look really wrinkly, but for the most part, I think it's okay. So that pretty much concludes all the plants that I'm propagating right now, and it's quite a bit. Definitely quite a bit. I'm very scissor happy. I just like to always cut my plants. Particularly my Hoyas, but only if they're big enough for me to cut. I don't like to cut them when they're really, really small because I want kind of plants that are a little bit bushier, but that's just my opinion. So leave a comment down below. I would love to hear what plants you guys are propagating right now and share your stories with me. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you subscribe, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.